Should I go handheld or should I use a tripod? Which is the best way for landscape photography? Why not come with me and see what we can learn? Well, good afternoon, and it is literally just after noon. It's probably about maybe 10 past, quarter past 12, and again I'm just doing another walk from home. I decided it's a while since I've walked around the lake, so let's have a walk around Derwentwater. So I've given myself approximately 6 hours to do that, which is more than ample. The quickest I've ever done it is in half that time. But what I wanted to talk to, I was just thinking as I was putting the last video together that went up last night, went live last night, that I do specifically highlight images that were handheld. I don't say for the other images that were on a tripod, but if they were handheld, I do put on that they were handheld. And I just wanted to discuss this, the advantages or disadvantages of handheld images compared to images captured using a tripod. So that's the aim of today's video. And some landscape photographers would say, well, it's landscape, you should always use a tripod. Well, I'm not quite sure that I totally agree with that. And there's some sort of more free-spirited people that would say, well, yeah, it's more creative, you can move around and handheld because you're not limited by being stuck on a tripod. So that's what I want to talk about. Anyway, whatever happens, we'll see you a little bit later. Right, as you can see, we've made it to Friar's Crag, which is one of those iconic views of Derwentwater. And as you've probably seen from the B-roll, etc., there is quite a lot of people about. So that brings me to the first advantage of handheld images, that you can literally just get your camera out and take a picture without having to set the tripod up when there's lots of people and you would get in their way and they would be in your way. You can just shuffle around, get your composition and get your image. I have taken a couple of images. The advantages of handheld images, that you can, it's easier when there's lots of people about. Obviously there are some restrictions with handheld images, but we'll maybe talk about those a bit later. So yeah, so that's Friar's Crag, and we're going to work our way around over there and carry on round the lake. So yeah, whatever happens, we'll see you a little bit later. Right, well, you see we've now come to the Centennial Stones and I've got the tripod out. Now, what are the advantages of the tripod? you can be a bit more accurate with your framing because your camera's still and you can move it slightly. When you're trying to do it handheld, it's more difficult. The other thing is to keep the camera very stable, and particularly on this one I decided I've taken a standard image and now I've taken a long image, putting the 10-stop ND filter on, and that's 15 seconds, and there's no way I can hold a camera still with no stabilization for 15 seconds. So that's why we use the tripod on long exposures. And the reason for the long exposure is to try and smooth out the lake. We'll see how that's come out, and maybe to get a more streaked effect in the sky. So that's why we're using a tripod here. And it's when you come in low, it's easy to get it the right height, stable, and you're not relying on yourself. So that's one of the advantages of the tripod, particularly for long exposures like this, for framing up, etc. There are one or two people nearish, but nobody else around the stone here, so we're not being affected by having to avoid other people, so we can get the tripod out. So yeah, that's the reason for using the tripod here. If the images are any good, we'll put them up and then we'll carry on, and we'll see you a little bit later. Right, we've now made it to Ashness Gate Jetty, where the launch stops. Again, as you can probably see from there, it's a fairly iconic image to be had. So yeah, there's people coming now, but what I did, don't know what I can show you, there's a line down there. So I first came with the camera and just kneeled and took some handheld images, and then I got the tripod out and more or less put it on the same spot, same composition, and same settings, and took some more images. So it'll be interesting to see how well that comes out, how the difference is. I will process both images and we'll put them up so they can be compared. So one of the advantages of the tripod here is it's easier to work at exactly where it's central to get a view down the jetty. A bit more easier than doing it when you're doing it handheld. And the advantage here could be if you've got your camera set up like I've got mine there already on the tripod, etc. If it's quite busy and it's fairly essential that you use the tripod, what you can do is quickly have it already more or less set up, plonk it down, focus, etc., take the images, and then you're away. So you're not there. I mean, sometimes you want to compose an image and you're on your tripod for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes to just finesse your composition, whereas here's where it's a fairly standard one. It is possible to plonk the tripod down, do it, and then get out the way so you're not interfering. So as I say, we'll put both images up so you can compare, and then we'll carry on going round the lake, and we'll see you a bit later. Right, as you have seen, we've come across Chinese bridge and along the boardwalk, and we're at the bottom, or the head of the lake, I suppose. It's the head where the water comes in, the bottom where the water goes out, which is the Keswick end. But I did stop. The boardwalk is very narrow, but I did manage to stop, and I saw a couple of flowers, so we did capture some images of those, which I'll have put up, so you've seen that. And that again is a time when it is very useful to have the camera handheld, that you can just stop and capture the images. And then when we got off the board towards the end of the boardwalk, somebody said there was a heron. So I did stop and swap the lens from the 24 to 70 to the 70 to 200, and I have tried to capture some images of the heron. How good they are, I mean, really, even at 200, it is just a bit of a spot in the middle. And then I took the first few from a certain vantage point, and then I thought, if I move around there I might get closer, but I must have spooked the heron, so it did fly off. I tried to follow it, but obviously it was aware of me and kept flying off, so I couldn't get really close. I did get some images while it was flying, and again, if I'd been on a tripod I wouldn't have got those, because you've got it handheld and then you can pan and follow the bird. But it's not one of my strong points, so hopefully we'll have 2 or 3 reasonable images that if I crop in they won't be too bad. So we'll put those up just to show those, and those are all handheld. Anyway, we'll carry on and we'll see you a little bit later. Right, you can see we're now at Abbot Bay, and in the middle there is Otter Island. And what I'm going to do on this occasion, I'm actually going to record through the stills camera as well. So you can see there, that's where we've set up. And the beauty of a tripod is if you want to just finesse, for want of a word, your composition. And what I'm going to do with this composition, I'm into 16:9 crops, and the video here from the stills camera is 16:9, so that gives a good idea. So we've got the crop there. Maybe we just want to we're just going to zoom in a bit. So we've got the fence at the bottom, the wall of Crag, and we're just going to go around a bit. So we've got the boathouse to the far left, the Otter Island on about the third, the top of the lake there about on a third, and we've got wall of Crag at the side there that complements the boathouse there, and that mountain there is Lonscale Fell with, don't know whether you can just see in front of it, is Latrick. Skidder is actually over here behind here, and Blencathra is behind Otter Island. So as you can see there, I've been able to move things and then stay, whereas when you're doing it trying to do it handheld, that is extremely difficult. So this is one thing that is extremely useful, a good reason to put it on the tripod, that you can just finesse, you can yeah, it's the only thing I haven't done, and may do after, because I haven't taken the images yet. The images you'll see will mirror what we've got here. The only thing I will double check when I go back into the stills mode rather than video mode, is just double check that I've got the horizon level, that it's level. But yeah, so that's what we can do. We've seen, we've just finessed it a little bit, we've zoomed in, we've just moved the camera a little bit, and that. So in a moment we'll take the images, we'll put them up, and then we're going to carry on round the lake. So this is a big plus of using a tripod, being able to have the camera reasonably static but just finesse the image and know that it's, once you've done it, it's going to stay like that. As I say, when you're doing it handheld, you maybe move a bit, but you're constantly moving, so getting the boundaries is quite difficult. And I am in a mode at the moment where most images that I put up are as straight from the camera in terms of the borders. I may either crop the top and bottom or the sides, but I only crop on one, either the horizontal or the vertical, that I'm keeping what was taken in the camera. I mean, I may crop down to a 16:9, which is what I'm doing here, rather than the standard 6:4, or occasionally I'll crop into a 5:4 rather than the 6:4. And if it's in portrait mode, often I crop down to 4:5 rather than 4:6, because I'm not over keen on 4:6. But the width or the height, I only change one of them. That's what I'm doing at the moment. It's very, very rare I crop in. I will have done that on some of the heron ones due to the nature of the images, but particularly when I'm on a tripod, I'm trying not to crop in. So finessing it like this does help that. So yeah, we'll stop there and we'll see you a little bit later. Right, well we're now at Otterbeil Bay and we've set up the camera on the tripod to capture an image of the lone tree along with Blencathra underneath. I don't know whether you can see it on the back of the camera there. So if we come round, you can see the tree there, and underneath is Blencathra. Skidder is around there. So again, I think the beauty of the tripod here is just being able to finesse and get the camera exactly where you want it. I wanted the branch to be in the sky, not intersect with Blencathra, so I had to be relative, but I wanted not to be looking up to the tree too much. If you go too high, you then get intersect with Blencathra. If you come down too low, you're looking up at the tree. So the beauty of the tripod there is just being able to get in the right position, finesse it, and then capture the images. Whereas handheld, I mean, and you can see that's at my eye level, so I could have done it handheld. I just feel personally that it's better with the tripod, just getting it just right, finessing it, adjusting it, etc. So yeah, so that's that image. We'll put the image up and we'll carry on around the lake, and I'll find somewhere to stop fairly shortly and then come up with some conclusions as to tripod v handheld. So we'll see you shortly. Right, so what's my conclusion? Which is best, on a tripod or handheld? Well, Like most things in photography, the answer is it depends, and also to a certain extent it's personal preference. There are certain times when one is possibly better than the other, but a lot of the time there's not an awful lot of difference. Right, if we think of handheld, we can react to things like the heron when it started to fly away. I could follow that. If I'd been on a tripod, I couldn't have done. As I was walking along, I'd got the camera handy and could stop and just kneel down and get images of pictures. If there's a lot of people about, like at Friar's Crag, I can manoeuvre about with them and then get the picture I want. There is a question mark over stability, and it depends on how good you are at holding the camera and what stabilisation you have. The camera I've got, which is a fairly old one now, doesn't have any in-body stabilisation, and the lens, the 24-70 lens that I had on for the majority of the time, doesn't have any stabilisation either. The long lens that I had on when I was trying to capture the heron does, and that was turned on, so that would help then. But I found that I can hand holding, if I've got a good stance, possibly resting the camera on something, not always, but certainly holding the camera up to my eye like this, because then you've got the two hands and the camera resting against your face to add to stabilisation. If I'm doing it handheld, I never hold the camera out to look at the back of the screen, because I feel the stabilisation there, it's less stable, more likely to move. So back here, I now have got images down to probably getting down to towards half a second, where they're still pretty sharp. Obviously, again, it depends, as we say, it depends on shutter speeds. There is the talk of 1/4 focal length, so if you've got a 200mm lens, you shouldn't go below a 200th of a second. If you've got a 30mm lens, you can go down to a 30th with stabilisation lower. But if you've got a good hold, you can get stable images, sharper images at quite low shutter speeds, and I'm fortunate that I seem to be able to hold the camera quite still to get those. Obviously, if we're doing extremely long exposures like one at the Centennial Stones there, where I did a 30-second exposure, there's no way that you could hold that steady on a handheld. So what are the pluses of, so that's the pluses of handheld, and then the minuses to do with getting it sharp and stable. I suppose the other minus is, to a certain extent, as you're doing it, you are moving about slightly. So if you're trying to finesse your composition and you're not wanting to crop, you're wanting to get it exactly as it comes out the camera, it is difficult, because it's just difficult just to move it that little bit up or a little bit down or to the right or to the left, and that's another disadvantage of the handheld. So what about the tripod? Obviously it's something extra to carry. It can be awkward if there are a lot of people about, like at Friar's Crag. If I'd tried setting up the tripod there, it would have been difficult. But as I pointed out, if there's one particular image you're looking to get, and it is a relatively straightforward image, like at the Jetty there, it is possible when there's one or two people about, but not if there's lots, to get the camera on the tripod, get everything ready, and then when there's a gap, put it down, and then quickly do the composition and then take the image. But that only works where you've got a straightforward composition where you know exactly what you're going to do, where the borders are a little fuzzy, like at the Jetty. You're out into the lake and into the sky, so the borders are not as crucial, so you can do that. But it is very awkward where there's lots of people. but it is very good where you've got the space at the time to set it up to be able to finesse the image and to take extremely long images. I have taken images up to even 10 minutes, which there's no way you can do handheld, and you can do them on a tripod. It does help as well. What about height? Obviously, if you're trying to hold the camera up like that, I don't think it was stable. If you've got a tripod that can go quite high, that's useful. What about getting very low? Well, if you're handheld holding, you can actually lay down and have the camera like that, and that is quite stable for getting wildlife and just looking across there. There's a robin there, so yeah, that's quite good. And the standard tripod is a bit difficult for getting very low. I mean, the one I've got, I can take the centre pole off so the legs will splay out more and you can get it lower. But I have got what they call a platypod, which is a small plate about as big as my hand. It's got is it a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch thread, so you can put a tripod head on it and it can more or less sit on the ground. It's got some small legs, and then you can put the camera on the head, so you've got a very low stable base. It's I suppose an alternative to a tripod. You could stand it on the table or something else instead of using a tripod, but it then gives you the advantages of tripod of keeping very stable, very still, and if you're just wanting to finesse that image, it is very good for that. So, and again, it is a personal preference. The other thing for handheld is you can react quicker. If you suddenly see something or you hear something, there's a jet coming past, or you just suddenly see something, even if it's in your bag, you can get your camera out, up to your eye, well, put the lenses on, because mine aren't on in the bag, put the lenses on, then you're ready to capture your image. Whereas if you've then got to get the tripod up, set it up, etc., it is a lot slower. So I think there are places where one stands out above the other for the long exposure, for the finessing the composition, for where you've got, yeah, that's where the tripod stands out. Where you need to react, where there's a lot of people, that's where the handheld image comes into its own. So they're the extremes. It's like a spectrum, and you go from one to the other, and in the middle it's either or. And then it becomes personal preferences. Some people prefer the handheld. I think in general I prefer the tripod, but I'm quite happy to react with something and just do it handheld. Particularly, say, street photography. If I was going around a city and wanting to take buildings, whatever, I would tend to err on the side of handheld images, because getting a tripod out is difficult when there's people. Again, it comes to how much space and how many people there are. If there is space and there's not so many people, get it out, because it may have advantages. But it's one of those things, at the extremes, one is better than the other, but in most of the spectrum in between, I think it comes down to personal preference. I mean, I hope this video has been useful for those who think, oh, well, you've got to use a tripod all the time. You don't. Or some people who hate tripods and handheld is the real way of doing photography. No, it's not. It is one way of doing photography, it's not the only way. And as I say, in the middle, it is personal preference. At the extremes, I think one is superior to the other, but only at the extremes. So, as I say, I hope you've found this video useful, and we'll see you a little bit later. Right, I'm about 3/4 the way around, about a quarter left, but there's nothing left really to capture images of, and I do need to get home for tea, so we're going to call it at the end of the video. It's been a great afternoon, So probably the longest walk I've done for a while. It's coming around about the 10-mile mark by the time I get home. We're over 7, getting on towards 8 now. But yeah, no, and hopefully you found the video informative. Whether you agreed with my conclusions, I don't know. Perhaps you could comment. And if you have liked the video, please click the thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing, why not subscribe? And what I really do appreciate is any comments that you make. So if there's anything at all, please do comment. Whether it's questions, something you've liked, something you've not liked or disagreed with, etc. So yeah, what I'm going to do for the next video, just find somewhere probably local to go where I've got a bit of space and just do a short midweek video on what's in my bag. There's been 1 or 2 comments recently to do with weight and that following my wild camping disaster, so just want to go through what's in my bag, what the sort of weight effects are, and in a sense to justify what I have in there. So yeah, so that'll be in the next video. After that I'm not quite sure. I want to get out and about somewhere a little bit different, and we'll do our best. So yeah, we'll just call it a day there and say we'll see you on the next video.